Let me ask you something. Do you require your tenants to fill out a rental application when you rent to them? In this video, I will explain why you should use a rental application, and if you do, what information you should be asking for. Coming up. Hey guys, if we're just meeting, my name is Vitaly Volpov. I'm a practicing attorney, an active real estate investor, and a part owner of a real estate brokerage in upstate New York. On this channel, I discuss relevant legal concepts as well as best strategies and tips for real estate investing and personal finance. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so that YouTube notifies you of all my future content. If you enjoyed the content in this video, hit the like button and comment down below. And as always, whenever I'm discussing legal or financial topics, just remember, nothing that I say in this video should be construed as legal or financial advice. I provide this information for educational and entertainment purposes only, and you should always consult with your own attorney and your own advisor before making any legal or financial decisions. Last but not least, the views and opinions that I express in this video are my own alone and don't necessarily reflect those of my law firm or any of my business partners. So why do you even need a rental application? After all, you can perform the necessary due diligence on your tenants without one. For example, you can require your tenants to go to a site like rentprep.com, which I talked about in a recent video, affiliate link in the description below if you would like to check them out, and have them provide all of their personal information directly to the site in order to obtain their background and credit checks. In that scenario, all that is needed from your tenants is their name and email address. There are also other sites that tenants can go to where they can obtain a copy of their background and credit reports, which would not require them to fill out an application with you. So if getting the background and credit checks isn't the reason for an application, why do you need one? Well, there's actually more to vetting a tenant than simply checking their background and credit. First, an application allows you to see how truthful the tenant is in his or her responses to the questions you ask them on their application. You can cross-reference their responses, for example, with regard to their past landlord history. If your application asks them to list all of their past residences and their responses on that application omit an address that their background report shows, well, that may be a red flag and is something that you need to follow up with them on. Second, a well-crafted application provides you with some insight into your tenant's mindset about their personal finances and how seriously they will view their responsibilities as a tenant. I'll explain what I mean by that in just a bit. Third, a good rental application will gather information that may allow you to more easily collect on a money judgment against the tenant should such a judgment become necessary in the future. This is information such as their social security number, driver's license, date of birth, and so on. Finally, a good, well-crafted rental application will also act as a shield against potential fair housing discrimination claims relating to your tenant's selection process. One word of caution here is that a poorly crafted rental application which overtly violates the fair housing laws can result in more rather than less liability. So as I will talk about in a little bit, definitely take care to know the laws in your jurisdiction when it comes to tenant screening so you don't unwittingly violate them. Okay, so hopefully you're starting to see the value in using a rental application. So what information should you ask for if you decide to use one? Well, there are 6 categories of information that I think you should be discussing with your tenants on your rental application. Number 1 is the applicant's personal information. You should ask your applicant to provide their full name, social security number, date of birth, driver's license number, phone number, and email address. As I mentioned, this information is important in identifying your tenant, confirming that they are who they say they are, and ensuring that you have all the necessary information should you ever have to sue them and collect on a money judgment against them. Of course, the hope is that you never have to do that, but you want to be prepared and armed with the right information if you do. Number 2 is the applicant's rental history. I think that you should ask your applicant to list all of the places that they have lived over the last 5 years, including their current residence. This section of your application should ask the applicant to provide you with the full addresses, landlords' names and phone numbers, move-in and move-out dates, and the reasons for moving. You should then cross-reference the information the tenant provides you in this section with the data that will be provided in their background check. Once you get this information, you should call the landlords listed and ask them about how this applicant was as a tenant while they rented to them. Another tip that I picked up from Brandon Turner of biggerpockets.com is that you should put more weight on what the prior landlords tell you rather than what the current landlord tells you about this applicant, because the prior landlords have no reason to lie. While the current landlord may be looking to get rid of a bad tenant and embellish how good the tenant is, prior landlords have no incentive to be untruthful. Number 3 is the applicant's employment information. In this section, you should ask your applicant to provide the name, phone number, and supervisor's name at their current employer. You should also ask them to state their title and how much they make per month in gross income. My rule of thumb is that the applicant's gross monthly income should be at least 3 times their monthly rent, and preferably significantly more. Lastly, you should include a line in this section for other sources of income and how much those bring in per month. In terms of vetting the income information that your applicant provides you, you can try to confirm it yourself, or you can outsource this task to a tenant screening website. RentPrep.com has an income verification add-on to their standard screening package that uses a unique approach to income verification that will be quite difficult for your applicant to fake. This is something that I covered in my review of RentPrep.com, and I will include a link to the video in the YouTube card above. Number 4 is a section where you should ask your applicant some probing questions with regard to their financial responsibility and mindset when it comes to being a responsible tenant. In this section, you may want to ask your applicant questions like, how long do you plan to live here? Have you ever broken a lease? Do you smoke? What reasons could cause you not to pay your rent on time? And so forth. There's a lot of room for including some creative questions that could give you an indication to how good or bad this applicant will be as a tenant. But you also have to be careful here so that you don't ask any questions that may be prohibited in your jurisdiction. For example, in some jurisdictions, it is perfectly legal to ask whether your tenant has ever been convicted of a crime or whether they have ever been evicted. However, in other jurisdictions, those questions are strictly prohibited by state and local laws and regulations. Even asking a question like what pets do you have or how many people will be living in the apartment must be phrased with care. You don't want your questions to give the impression that you are against people who have children or renters who have emotional support animals. Those are also prohibited in most circumstances and can result in potential liability for you. Number 5 is a section in your application which provides your applicant with a list of qualification standards that you will follow in determining whether or not you will rent to them. Now, this isn't a section where you're asking your applicant to provide you with any information. Rather, it's a section where you are providing information to your applicant. This will be a list of criteria on which you judge your applicants. Some examples include a minimum credit score of 650, positive landlord references for the last 5 years, gross monthly income that is at least 3 times the monthly rent, and so on. The purpose of including these criteria in the application, and by the way, if you used any criteria in your advertising, the criteria in your rental application should be 100% consistent. But the purpose of including these criteria in the application is to, number 1, make sure that your applicant is fully informed, and number 2, protect you from claims that you discriminated against an applicant. When you don't have any stated criteria and you decide who you will rent to based on some factors for some applicants and other factors for other applicants, you open yourself up to claims that there was an improper reason for you to reject a particular applicant, even if your actual reason was perfectly legal. Consistency of standards and your implementation of those standards to each applicant is the most important part of keeping yourself out of legal trouble. Finally, number 6 is a section where you will inform your applicant that you will be performing a background, credit, employment, landlord history, and other inquiries with third parties, and that your applicant gives you the express right and permission to do so. This is very important since many third parties will not provide you with any information about the applicant without such written authorization. So this section should include a detailed paragraph on what kind of verifications you plan to do, and it should also be signed and dated by the tenant. So these are the 6 categories of information that I believe should be incorporated into every rental application. If you guys would like to get a sample rental application, I will include a link to it in the description below. It is totally free, but keep in mind that it is merely a sample and is not necessarily something that is approved in any jurisdiction. You will need to refer to the laws in your local jurisdiction to ensure full compliance. Federal, state, and local laws are constantly changing, and even if the sample application complies with them today, it may not do so tomorrow. There is no substitute for consulting with a knowledgeable attorney who's up to date on your local landlord and tenant laws. So with that said, guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. If you enjoyed and got value from this video, please hit the like button, and if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, definitely subscribe so that you don't miss any of my future content. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.